Hello, you're welcome to episode 6 of Ghana Made Lit by the Goethe-Institut. My name is Dokas Fofaliche and I'll be your host for today. On this episode, we are looking at storytelling. Is it a thing of the past? How many stories are being told these days? What are they about? How has technology impacted stories in our day? There's a quote in Arabian Nights that says that stories are a communal currency of humanity. So this episode will discuss that. And I hope you stay tuned. With me on my left is a gentleman in black. So as usual, I'll let them introduce themselves. Say, over to you.
Yeah, my name is officially Kwekujo Benedict. My artist name is Yibo Kojo Yibo, but people call me Black because Yibo is black. I'm an artist, a performer, and a social servant. I believe I serve society. I run Halakasa, which is the longest spoken word scene in the country at the moment, and I enjoy what I do with my creativity. This is just me.
Nice meeting you.
Pleasure.
Yes, please.
Hi, okay, my name is Alba. I am a traveler. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an author. I've published 2 books. I am currently the producer of a TV show for teen girls, but my whole background is filming, writing, script writing.
Thank you. You're all welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me start with Alba.
Yeah, sure.
So I wanted to put you on the spot, but I don't know if
Sure.
that will work. But can you just tell us a short story about your favorite food? How did you come up with, okay, this is my favorite food?
Well, I have several favorite foods.
Okay.
And but when I was thinking about this question and thinking about culture, I thought about the Orisha goddess of lightning, spirits in the cemetery. She is the ruler of my head, according to Brazilian candomblé folklore. As you know, the Orishas were taken from Nigeria by enslaved people to the New World, and it manifests in Brazil as candomblé. The goddess of lightning, her name is Oya. She's the wife of Shango. In Brazil, she manifests as Iansan. Iansan, there are 7 of them. Iansan Jibale is the one that rules my head. She is the keeper of the cemetery and of dead spirits. She is the first warrior, female warrior, to descend when the drums call the gods at a candomblé gathering. Her food is called abara. Each god has a food. Her food is abara. In Nigeria, it's known as moi moi. In Ghana, it's known as apapransa. And so, living in Brazil, I lived in Brazil for a time. I got very involved in candomblé, and I learned a lot about this entity that is very strong within me. Within my characteristics, I totally understand that. And so the food of that god is very important because it's also a part of me. So that would be the one I would tell you about.
Wow. It took me, as soon as she started, I was just imagining everything that you were saying. Ivo, over to you. A story of your favorite food.
Yeah, I think I would have 2 foods I like. One is nyamfuge, which I know you don't know what it is,
No,
but
I
unless I tell you. And the other one is banku. I would like rather not to say the story, but to tell you in a song. So it goes like, characteristics of banku, characteristics of banku. You put your water on fire, you add your more inside, you stir it. Come on, 8-10 to banku. Come on, 8-10 to banku. Come on, 8-10 to banku.
Wow.
That's my story.
And you know, the funny thing was we all got that song wrong, that
Yeah.
Michael Jackson song wrong. You're gonna be starting something, and we all did it. Was characteristics of Bangkok.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you one other tiny little story of a food, because I just think it's comical. So I stayed with a friend of mine in Jamaica. Like, I used to live in Cuba, and he was from Jamaica, so I went to spend Christmas with him in Jamaica. And there was this one-armed Rasta man who made like the most delicious Johnny cakes in the whole area. And there would be queues to go and get these Johnny cakes from this guy. And then one day, my friend Damon, his friend Zachary comes and he says, "Damn, you can't believe what I've seen." And he was like, "What?" And he said, "You know the Johnny cakes that we like eating?" He'd walked past very early in the morning, looked through the window as this man was preparing, and he just scooped the dough.
Oh God!
And so we assumed that his sweat was what gave the food such wonderful flavor.
I didn't think I want to eat that food again.
It didn't stop us from going. It was so good.
It was
And
nice.
when you think of fufu pounding, think of all
Yeah,
the sweat
yeah.
that flavors your
Yeah,
fufu.
that's
So-
true. Interesting. I like the twist you added to your story. What was what is your first memory of stories? Like, do you remember the first time you heard a story?
This question, there are a couple of stories. However, I don't remember all fully. The one that stands strong is this story about, I don't know if it's a story or a myth, but it was told us at an early age about this football match between Ghana and India. Way back.
I don't think I was born then.
No, I wasn't born then either. But the interesting thing about this story for me is that until now, it still like bust my brain. And like, how on earth could you play a match and have the one team score 99 and then you score just one?
Oh.
Now the story is told that the match was set, and then whilst on the field, the Indians came up on the field. However, they brought a bottle and put it in the middle of the field. And then they started coming out of the bottle, the players, coming out of the bottle. But then this was where probably Ghanaians should say, no, this is not the way to start this match. We are not playing again.
Yeah.
But because it's a story, it went on, they came out, they started the match. If anytime they started the match, anytime the Ghanaians get to play, if they hit the ball, they hold their leg as if maybe it turns into some metal or stone or something. But if the Indians play, it's ball. And at the goalpost from the Ghana side, when the ball is shot to the keeper, he sees plenty balls, so he's not sure which one to catch, and so the goal kept coming in and coming in and coming in. So this, I don't know how it ended, but the fascination thing is that the idea that the other teams scored as 99, I'm still thinking of when the end of the story will come. But this story, some of you should also, you've heard this story before. Do you really know about it?
So that's why it stuck with you, because you're not sure how in God's
I
name
don't
someone
know.
would score 99 and the other person would score
No,
1.
till date still.
That's
You
an
heard that
interesting
story?
Oh, it's the first time I'm
Hey, this story. Every Ghanaian should know that. And also, another part of it is that the question about why Indians do not go to World Cup is because they believe that they have juju or they have magic, they have powers, and that they can score you as many as they want. Because we've not seen them in the World Cup. Like when I became an adult, I've not seen them in the World Cup.
They focus on cricket.
And it's only recently I even know that they play cricket.
Oh, they're very good.
But why are they not in the World Cup?
I think your
it's
story
a
is
question. It could be, but I don't know the full.
But you know,
I love this.
recently, somebody wrote a book about juju in the World Cup, and all the different teams who've who've had some sort of jazz
Yeah.
protecting them. Even the Germans apparently put
Yeah.
something behind the goalpost.
All of them
All of
do.
them are doing
Has
something.
Kotoko, we know these things.
But
and
the
so
Indians took it to another level.
And it's
Oh,
called
they have been long ago.
That's an interesting story. I can see why it stuck with you. You know, I was telling you that the story that I remember was the one that says there was a girl who was told not to play after 6 p.m., not to play ampe. And she decided to play and she got stuck in the sky. So we used to say ampe jinyege. Yeah, so when you're about to play, okay, that's ever, sorry. So that means like ampe, my heart has fallen. I think that's a literal. You would understand.
That's
so
correct, yeah.
when you're about to play and it's dark, you intentionally play it and say, "Hey, I'm paging again." And like you at the back of your mind, you know there's a possibility that you get stuck in the sky, but you still want to dare and do that. Yeah, that was my first story. Alba, what about you?
I was in London.
Okay.
But I really can't remember what the first story was. I mean, the other thing too, with somewhere like the UK was they have a lot of stuff on TV. So they have programming for 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds. So a lot of the, nursery rhymes and all those kind of things were things that I was exposed to. Now, growing up a little bit more, my father was he liked telling stories and he would have stories that he would tell over and over and over again to we would just roll our eyes. And one he likes telling is of a Nigerian friend of his who came to visit in the UK. And when he was going to the airport, for some reason, his visa, he overstayed by about 2 days. And so he got to the airport and immigration said, excuse me, sir, do you know that you have overstayed by 2 days? And this Nigerian man got furious and told him, my friend, you came and overstayed 200 years in my country. Did I say anything to you? Give me back my passport. And
that's a good one.
he shouted at them and everyone was looking confused, but they handed over the passport because yes, you overstayed by more than 200 years, quite frankly. Yeah.
Wow. I like the fact that your dad kept repeating the same story.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, you just want to roll your eyes because you've heard it 50 times. So every time there's like a gathering or his friends come around, and the moment he says, "Oh, because," and he's like, "Oh God, here goes this man again."
But don't you think he just wanted to make his point across, like the moral of the story mattered?
Maybe, but when you're a kid, it's like this man's told this story 60 times. Like, find a new story, Dad.
That's interesting. And I was asking that particular one because I feel most of the times when our parents or those around us start sharing their stories, it's because they want to put a message across. Most often, some of these stories are mixed with morals, with cultural values, stories geared towards nation building. You hear of people who sacrificed everything just to put Ghana first and all sorts of things. What is the importance of storytelling in culture and nation building? Shall I start with you, Alba?
Let me check my notes. Okay, so here, the first thing I wrote was, why does everything in our nation have to revolve around nation building? It's always the first thing that people, nation building.
Is it not because of, let's say, the whole patriotism? We want to be patriotic. We want to be patriotic. We want to put Ghana first.
Put Ghana first. But look at everything in this country. Clearly, we're not patriotic.
I get you.
It's something that we say, and so and it's also something that I think is very much a Western approach towards African countries. I'll give you a good example. When I published my first book, it was called The Imported Ghanaian. And it was about me returning to Ghana and some of the cultural clashes that I faced. So I had a BBC radio interview, and the presenter was asking me questions, and of course I was answering and, you know, talking about some of the issues I'd faced. And one of her first thing was, you know, towards the end, she said, well, don't you think your book might deter investors because, you know, from coming and helping to build the nation? And I said, when has any investor helped to build anybody's nation? The people in the land will build their nation. Investors will come and come and come. Our nation will not be built because it's not their aim, it's not their goal. And so I think when we talk of things about patriotism and that, I think in Ghana we need to be a bit more honest with ourselves and actually ask ourselves, what is patriotism? Because if we're going and we're throwing our rubbish everywhere, and you know, you see somebody throwing rubbish and you question them, what happens? You often get insulted for your efforts. What do we mean by patriotism in this country? Is something that, you know, because people say I'm proud to be a Ghanaian, but a lot of their actions
Speak otherwise.
it speaks otherwise.
What about from the culture perspective?
From the cultural perspective, I think it's incredibly important because I think storytelling is very African. It's a very African thing because we're people who talk to each other. You get on Trotro and something little happens and everybody is giving their, you know, what happened to them, and people end up talking about things that you wouldn't expect. At least you wouldn't get it mostly in a Western place. But I think it's a great tool as well for history because we have the Adinkra symbol, Sankofa. We need to look back before we can look forward. You talk to the average Ghanaian, they have no clue about their history. Anything before independence, they don't really know anything much. I don't know what's happening in schools history-wise, but I think storytelling would be a great way of giving, you know, history and the past, because we need something to hold on to, something to feel proud about, and we do have very beautiful history.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of importance we can attach to storytelling, and I mean, in different dimensions, I believe, culturally and also, like you said, in nation building. As Abba said, right? Yeah, I mean, if you are a contemporary Ghanaian today and you are conscious, you attest to the fact that a lot of things that are going on today, you do not want it happening. And so you find it difficult to see that there is something you can say, okay, storytelling, it's helping to build our nation. But it's as if nation building is just for some people who will not associate even the idea of storytelling, literature, and then thinking and then creating to it. They will not do that. So it is, for me, what I say is that it's just around a certain group of people or some field of people who are helping to build this nation, but not a nation that we can see physical. I don't see it like that. Not like a building, but then we are building structures, we are building highways in people's minds so that they can transport ideas. And this is how I see storytelling in the area of poetry, in the area of music, dance, theater. I see it like this. Culturally, the same way. So it fashions their mind. It's developed the fabric of the way we think, how we see things, because our everyday thing we do are stories. What you did yesterday is a story. You can look at it and write it maybe in your diary or something like that. And so as we nurture young people or people to understand the fact that the things you do are all story, you don't need to become a writer in order to write a story. Anybody, everyone is telling stories, and this is what we all need to understand so that we can build ourselves in this perspective, so that we can develop whatever we are doing is getting into tomorrow, which is becoming history that we can call our story. So if we don't see it like this, it will be very, very difficult for us to say something, yeah, and storytelling is building nation development, is supporting our... No, it doesn't happen like that for me. This is how I see it.
Another thing too, is when you are talking about building highways in people's minds, there's all of that, but it also needs to fall into the whole educational structure, and not just formal education but informal education, because there's also another thing, the arts. Like someone in Nigeria say, is it what I'm going to eat? We have to be very honest. The average Ghanaian's main focus is what they're going to eat during the day. And so a lot of people don't even see art. Let's even storytelling is part of art. Don't even see art as part of their lives. They don't see what use it is. And in the way that Black has just described it, you actually become a rebel. You become a revolutionary, because that's what it is. And then you have this culture which is about obedience and following what is said. This is how we do things. I don't know if I'm making...
Like a set of rules.
So we have a society that says this is how we do things, everybody should get on it. But going back to what Black says, and using storytelling and art and poetry for nation building, i.e. expanding people's minds, making people free thinkers, then it is actually a revolutionary act, which goes very much in contrary to what our society is set up for.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think my point is, I mean, I get what she's saying. My point is, there is no nation without a people. And if the people cannot create the way they want to see their nation, there is no nation. And so for me, it starts from that basic level, how we can tell, maybe if I have to talk about you to someone, the way I tell the person will make the person see who you are without necessarily seeing you. And so if we can begin to see this is how to build a nation, or this is how to build from the small place, a community, this is how to build friendship, this is how to build family, then we take it from there, gradually. And that's how we can see the importance of what we are as a people. Then we can know that what we are doing is we are building story, but not necessarily building a nation.
So then where do stories come from?
It's difficult to tell you where stories come from, because it is the happening that we can tell what it has happened, if you understand what I mean. It is the happening. If, let's say, we are here and you've asked me a question, we've done something here. After it is done, then we can tell what we have done. This is different from we want to do something. You understand what I mean? It's different from we want to do something which we have already conceived the idea, then we do it. So storytelling comes from very different places. There are those who have been nurtured or trained to understand or to know that I want to become a storyteller. That is a field. For those who do not even know that they are telling stories, if you ask them where do stories come from, they won't be able to tell you, but then they create stories every day. The same way we have today, people who are photographers cannot hold on to the idea that they are the only photographers in the world, because mobile phones have come and everybody is using their mobile phone to take solid and beautiful pictures. This is my point I'm making, that the idea of stories come from all over the place. Right now, we sit here, we can create stories right now. Even when someone is dead, a story can be created from the death. When somebody is born, a story can be created from it. So if you are willing, you will receive freely, and freely you will need to give. So stories come from all over, but there are those that also can get it from within. They receive and they give and things like that.
Oh, wow. Anything to add?
For me, stories come from everywhere. Everybody is a storyteller. They might not know that they're doing it, but they're doing it. It comes from our dreams, it comes from our fantasies, it comes from just maybe even hearing a word and something just flourishes from it. I think everybody has it. Maybe some people have made theirs dormant because they don't think it's important, or there are people who are scared to explore that thing.
And for those who are scared to explore, what do you think can be done?
Well, first and foremost, maybe they need to acknowledge it first. You can't do anything to somebody who doesn't come to the realization. Because stories are incredibly powerful. Stories can change the course of things. And for certain people, stories are a very dangerous weapon. And by virtue of the story, the narrator is also a very dangerous weapon to. But storytelling can create change, and change is is a constant thing. It's something that's always there.
Okay. So what are the elements of storytelling? Like, what are the building blocks? If I have an audience of, let's say, 10 to 15-year-olds, and I want to tell them a story, what are some of the elements that I must weave into my story? Is it character? Is it storyline? Is it the end?
So my background is I'm a filmmaker. And filmmaking is about storytelling. It can take any form. It can take, certain elements. What should I say? Storytelling happens in every form. TV, film, radio, songs. It's the whole medium. There's structure. But I think with storytelling, it's different from those other things that I've mentioned because it's in the now. So I think what you then, one, you have to gauge your audience. Obviously, you have to tell a story that is appropriate for, as you said, maybe a group of 15-year-olds. You're not going to tell them some erotic story.
Why not?
Why not? And so for me, I think the structure of storytelling is loose, not like film where there's that theater structure. It's 3 acts, it's 5 acts, it's 8 acts, it's 10 acts. But I think storytelling is a lot more. It's loose, and also you can get you. For me, I think what's important is your body language while telling that story, your voice, how you build things up, the pauses, the suspense, you're setting the stage for something. And even if it means you have to get up from your seat and reenact things and your gestures, and for me, those things are like they're more important than the idea of, okay, my story starts here and that, because it's also non-linear. You could start it wherever you want and craft it in a way, and then your audience participate with you. So for instance, even if you have a story and you have a call and response thing going on, then that's the way you also get your people to participate. So it really depends.
Okay. Yibo?
I mean, I'll pick from the call and response thing. I'm from the background of spoken word, and my strength has been the call and response thing to telling stories. However, the structure, or if there is any element in how I tell the story so someone can know in order to tell, it will be difficult. But it's possible to see and then feel, if only you can break into pieces what you heard, then you can tell there was this in it, there was that in it, there was that in it. And then some of the things could be the character, the plot, the scheme, the comic in it. I mean, like all these small spices in order to make the story engaging or
I like
exciting.
how you call them spices.
Yeah,
More
because
examples.
so like the way spices are what the movement, the way you do things, you can
The cadence of
something
your
like that. These
voice.
are all things that when the eye see, it feels like it is taste to the tongue, you know, just for the ear to hear, and you're like, I feel it on my skin. You know, these things are necessary for a storyteller or someone who shares this sort of art form to do most of the time in order for you to be able to impact your audience. But in the area where you have children, it means that, okay, the language you use need to be selective. You know, you need to choose this language very well, and then also the scope to which they can understand what you are saying. You need to calm down a little bit so that you can be on their level. I mean, these
I think that's a dangerous
Yeah.
place because I think we also do that in our TV shows when we think this is the level of the audience.
No, I'm not saying the level of my audience, but I'm being specific as in if I'm supposed to be talking to kids,
Yeah.
then it means that you need to be aware of your surrounding, knowing exactly that these are kids you
I
are
understand,
addressing.
but
Yeah.
the themes can be anything.
The theme.
I mean, for instance, when I'm saying, okay, so maybe the way I heard it was, okay, if I've got a bunch of 5-year-olds, they're 5 years of age, so I understand. Obviously, there's language you wouldn't use around, but even for that, based on our culture, it's not language you would use anyway. Do you get me? We're not expected.
Can you give examples?
Yeah, like for instance, in the UK, the F word is thrown around left, right, and center. You have kids even responding to their parents in that way. In our society, it's not. It's a complete no-no. You can't just turn around and say, "Oh, shut up, Dad." You will not get away with it. You'll probably be heading towards the cemetery. But so I think what I heard was assuming that this is the level of people, so this is the level I need to stay at. Because I think you can elevate things and make it in a way that anybody can understand, especially if you have like a mixed audience. Take the Disney movies, like The Lion King or that. It was a cartoon. Yet they craft it in a way that children can enjoy it, but there are certain things that happen within it that adults enjoy, but the kids don't understand. So they find a way of balancing it well, so the kids get what they need, and the adults who take them get what they need. Because when you're telling a story, it's not going to be always that you're going to have a group of 5-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds, unless you go to a school. Normally you get a mixture of, people, and so you kind of need to balance it so that all the different age elements get something from it and nobody is left out.
So if I get you right, you are talking about balancing it regardless whether it's a specific age group or not. And I think you were talking about just being mindful of your audience, always knowing which audience you're dealing with, because that sort of influences your choice of words and the kind of stories you're taking. I think both are important. But then what would you say is, so does that mean that the audience is the most important element of storytelling? Or is the voice or because earlier you said, let's say it's on the radio and someone is narrating a story. Now, all the spices we spoke about, the gestures, dramatizing it and all that. I'm listening to you via radio. How do I pick those things up from the way you're narrating it? So doesn't that mean the voice is the most important thing?
Okay, so I worked on a BBC radio drama called Story Voices from the Market. And it was a radio drama. with all the different characters, and we had whatever was the central spine story. And they were really like really big things, like mineral resources, things that ordinarily would sound boring. But we found a way with the different voices, with the sound effects, leitmotifs, musical interludes, etc. And people watched it. And I think another thing we haven't mentioned is that your words need to be visual. Okay? I'll give you a good example. So I wrote a piece, and I'd written, I was walking past the kiosk when his voice exploded like a grenade. The person editing it said, oh, this is too wordy. Why don't you say, I passed by when the man shouted? They're the same thing, but they give you two very different visuals. I passed by when the man shouted is there. But when you know what a grenade sounds like. So if his voice exploded like a grenade, it tells you,
It's very loud.
it gives you the visuals of how loud that sound was. And so I think it's also the way you describe things really has to be visual, so that you're painting a picture and the people listening are also creating in their mind.
In your mind. Well, so with your background, how do you achieve that? Because I think I've sat through one or two of your events and heard you speaking. And I must say, with what Alba is saying, sometimes when you're listening, you can already paint a picture in your mind. Is it that the person has to, is it a talent the person has to develop? Like, how do you personally achieve that whilst you're telling a story?
I strongly believe, I mean, what Alba just said is totally true, and it's there. I also have this belief that you need to have a soul in order for you to speak through walls, speak through mediums, speak through, and not necessarily need to force. I mean, the character or the language or the words you use, we have that one. And we also have that one which the soul can do. You don't need to force too much. You just need to be honest with yourself. Tell the stories. Tell it what it is. I mean, because it's real, it doesn't matter what medium it will just go and then enter through where it needs to get to. This is one. You understand what I mean? You need to get a soul. Because, you see, the art is spiritual. And that's the same way. I give you an example, like there is a competition, like say on radio. And for anybody to fall in love with you doing what you are doing, it's because you are sending a certain signal with your message. They are not seeing your movement. They are not seeing anything. So this part of the character, the words that you need to use is already embedded in what you are saying. And so everything comes as a whole, and it gets to, so long as their senses are open, it will affect them, it will impact them. This is a very powerful medium also. And then also how you should be able to script your word or script what you are saying for them to see exactly the two that she explained. But one I want to talk about is you need to have a soul that is open, a genuine soul that allows you to speak what you are saying from an honest place. And when it goes out, it will touch the people it needs to touch. But not every word is for everyone.
I like the way you keep saying soul, because an ordinary person like me would say, oh, that means he's talking about the passion with which you say the story, or the desire.
No.
So can you break that part a bit?
You see,
down?
we have 5 senses.
Yeah.
That's what we know. But there are more. Your eyes will need to see in order for you to behold. Your ears need to hear for you to maybe understand. Your body or your hand need to touch for you to be able to feel. Your mouth can speak out. Some give and some receive. Your eye can give some revelation. Your eye can receive some revelations. Your mouth can speak out some things, but then you cannot speak things back, but you can paste something into you. All these are ways of communication. So if someone is speaking words which are spirits, the same way the spirit can go thousands of miles, go through walls and things, and it can touch you unaware, but then you will know that something has happened to you. So when I say soul, what I'm trying to say is that these areas, these 5 areas that we have, they are a combination, I mean, literally so that you can understand, but soul is more than that. You understand? These 5 areas that we have that receive and send signals are the things that you need to be aware of, that you are sending signals to these things in the people. But when you just speak because you need to just speak, it will probably fall where you need to just fall. But when you know that people are listening, their hearts are open, their body is sitting on a chair, and you need to say some things and then they'll get some shivering. I mean, like, you need to see first, because it's what you see, it's what you get. And so if you cannot see how you want your impact to be made, it probably might not happen, but sometimes it does, because it is not you who is supposed to do the impact, but the energy that needs to be settled will definitely settle at what it needs to settle, because he will not speak its word unless it is going to get something done.
But I think as a storyteller, that has to be a given, because before you start, you know there's something you want to share. And you share things that are important to you. Because as you were talking, I kept on thinking about, like, watching Dave Chappelle. I like watching comedians because they tell such truths, but in a comedic environment. So you laugh, but the thing really hits you because you're like, and so I like the idea of, again, using comedy as a vehicle to tell very serious things. And I think maybe you take a society and maybe people are very sensitive to certain things. You can tell them the truth via comedy and things that, you know, make them laugh. But you don't just go out there and say something. Even if it is, even, you know how sometimes you have to do something and it's like, oh, this thing is a little difficult, whatever. And then 3 days later, you sit down and everything comes through and you wonder where it came, because it was busily being cooked up without you knowing, but the work was happening. But the work needs to happen. Nobody just gets up and just does what.
Okay, so how has storytelling evolved and what forms does it take now?
Yeah, I think that with today's technology, there are so many ways or so many storytelling forms that there is, and my focus will be more on how poetry and using words or painting, artistic forms like performances, to performance art, to be specific, has helped us to tell stories in different ways. Now, I am in the space right now where I am challenging people, young people or young artists also, to find different ways to say the same thing they've been saying for a long time. I mean, if you say the same thing the same way all the time, you get the same results. And at a point, people will get bored with what you are saying and they will move on to other things, because of technology, things are moving so fast at a pace that we cannot tell that this is the pace and so this is how we need to catch up. So it's important that every single day you look for new ways in order to do what you are doing, especially in the creatives. Now, to give you a clear example, I can't tell what ways people are using now, but there are so many ways. In poetry, for example, we all know that you need to stand behind a microphone and then perform. And that's what we've been known for a long time. But there can be a lot we can do to that. You don't necessarily need to stand behind the microphone. You don't necessarily even need to talk. You can tell a story. Your body is an instrument you can use to tell so many stories. So it's a conversation that we need to get into in order for us to see that it's important that where the world is leading to, we need to find these new ways and these new gadgets that we have to tell our stories in a new way. Because there are people who are doing small skits on the internet, telling stories and traveling all over the place, and real artists who need to be doing that are not getting jobs. They are not getting gigs. So you see how it has expanded, that you, the real artist, you think you are a professional, you need to get this job. But probably because your mind is just thinking that, oh, I'll be employed and I'll go on stage and I'll perform and get my money and come back. No, it has changed. So for example, I mean, I've given the example, but what I'm saying is that we really need to open up to what we are seeing today and then find new ways. It doesn't mean that you need to be perfect. Just try something. Last 3 Sundays or 2 Sundays, I mean, I had conceived this idea of performing a piece. I mean, telling a story about how people just go on the internet and then they only give you like, comment, and that kind of thing. But if you're really doing a real show at a real place, they won't come. But when they see you on the internet, because it is so convenient to reach you via Facebook, YouTube or whatever, TikTok, they will just go there and then like. But probably they are from their face while pressing the like. You understand? So I call this the Tough Love series. And this is how to tell the love story. But are you going to show me love simply because I am in your face? Or you are going to show love because you have the love and you want to give me? So I went into the center location 3 hours before the performance for a 3 minutes performance. In the middle of the Tetakwashi runabout, I went there to pick a specific location and then send it out. Not many people came, and I wasn't expecting people to come actually. And people were rather asking, is it going to be streamed live? I said, no. Show your tough love by coming all the way from wherever you are, even though it's a 3 hour, for a 3 minutes performance. You understand? I mean, so we need to find new ways. And when we start challenging people and breaking the boundaries of venues also, like where we need to perform here all the time, no, find alternatives. And this is the way I think we need to be thinking about the new ways of engaging this technology that we have in our midst in order to tell stories in a new way.
You give me the answer to 2 questions.
Well,
How about?
Okay, so I keep on going back to art is still an elitist thing. And for it to really move is we need the masses on board. And I think for us, in our part of the world, art is often seen as a luxury that very few people can afford. When you were talking about people doing the likes, I'm very bad at that. Like, for instance, if you're my friend and you're doing something, like you put up a post and I see that nobody's liked it, I'll like it because, you know, there's nothing worse. I mean, the way we live now, there's nothing worse than you put your heart into something, you put something up and not one person has said anything. So for people that I know and I like, oh, I'll go there and like it, even if I don't read it or anything, but I'm thinking about you and the fact that you need that encouragement. You don't know whether I saw it or not, but you'll see my like and it will give you that encouragement to continue. Like as you're talking technology, TikTok, somebody can do like one silly little skit and have 6 million views, and then immediately brands jump on board. We don't have an environment like that. We don't have an environment because even the way we do marketing, for instance, he could maybe do a little TikTok 1 minute skit. It is literally impossible that somebody sitting at MTN or Vodafone is going to see this and say, you know what, we need to put money into this. So in the rest of the world, they're becoming influencers. They are being paid. And yeah, if you see the 1 minute skit, it's not that, oh, somebody just jumped up and somebody put a lot of thought into it. There's a whole team behind it. There's a lot of work. But then they know they can get they know they can get the results and the support. Here the arts still don't have the support it needs, and then the vast majority of people probably think it has nothing to do with their lives. And even though Amata said the arts are the glue that holds society together, because everything we do is art, but I don't know, maybe people need to be educated to realize that art is an integral part of their life. I mean, here we're talking about storytelling, but it is an important part of life. And it does happen. You'll be in Trotro, you hear stories. You're in a taxi, you hear stories. Because we're such a communicative people, it's happening all over. I don't know if people know that they're storytelling, but they are storytelling.
So when I said the two of you have answered two questions in one, you touched on the future of storytelling, which, as you said, everybody, it has to be all hands on deck. It's not just for a group of people. Yes. So that brings me to...
So schools would be a really good thing. And storytelling, it's not even just about storytelling. I tell you, one thing I think Ghanaians are terrible at is listening. We don't listen. We're waiting to answer questions. Or the one that I always run into, where you maybe you're catching a trotter and you say to the mate, "Are you going to Achimota?" And he says, "Mini coins." And you're thinking, how is you going to Achimota and coin? But he's thinking about. And so I think storytelling in school will teach people, one, storytelling, but two, will also teach people to listen. To actually be able to sit and listen and actually think of, and it would be great to develop national languages, because the storytelling could be in whatever language, and in English as well. But I think schools would be a great place, because then you catch them early.
Yeah. Do you think, talking about technology, do you think Audible has come to take place or has come to replace storytelling? Audible, that's the audiobooks.
No. Because storytelling happens everywhere. Even when we stop here, there will be storytelling. Audible is not going to do anything about that. It is an integral part of this culture. The fact that the vast majority don't realize that is neither here nor there. It is here, and we are doing it in many little forms. Now, if you want to talk about it with respect to finances and whether it will make you money, that's a completely different conversation. But storytelling, just for the pure love and joy of storytelling, we're doing it.
Okay. This has been an interesting conversation. Well, Alba, so I have just one question for you in wrapping up. What would be your advice to parents who want to tell stories to their kids, to bring up their kids with storytelling? How should they go about it?
I think they can start off. One thing that fires the imagination is books. And one of the beautiful things here in Ghana in recent years is that more and more Ghanaians are writing books. More young people are writing books, they're writing poetry. And so parents could actually start off just with that, even if it's, again, it has to start with making, for them to understand that is important, because it helps family bonding, it gives family time. I mean, I know growing up, there's certain times you have to be at the dinner table, whether you like it or not, because that's where conversation happens. And so maybe to start with books and just get into the art of reading to your kids or getting your kids to read to you, and then building it up to, okay, now tell us a story that you've created, and then take it that way. But the thing is, now a parent works somewhere, they're on a 12, 13-hour shift, and then they spend 2 hours in trotro in terrible traffic to get home. If it's a woman, she now has to get to the house and cook and feed people. The question is, for them, where is the time for storytelling? So everything literally in our society, for the vast majority of people, is positioned in a way like a spanner in the work for you not to be able to open yourself up to these beautiful things that will enrich your life in a very incredible way.
Thank you. I like that. Ivo, for you, I want you to touch on the angle of any young person who is willing to seriously look at storytelling as a career move, as something they want to do just out of the love for storytelling, or something they want to do just to create a change, to bring young people together, to share the love of storytelling. How should they go about it?
There is a saying that if you want to lead an orchestra, you need to turn your back to the crowd. Even though the crowd is a lot, the orchestra is also a good number. What I'm trying to say is that most of the time we like the applause and the things like that, that we always want to face where the excitement is. In these times, I strongly believe that people need to separate themselves a lot of the time, to isolate themselves a lot of the time, in order for you to get proper revelation, in order to be able to get genuine something to say. If not, we are so distracted with so many things today. As a young person, it's important for you to open up and be aware that this is the world we are living in. Because we are created with the core of the earth, everything that has been created that we see attracts us, pulls us, and this magnetic thing inside us, it's always, and we need to find a way to disentangle ourselves with this thing. If we are not able to be conscious about this and be aware and start to move through it like this, it will be difficult to have, because we are getting people creating and doing stories, but a lot of them are junks. And that's why it's difficult for us to see even in our society here today that people are there, like they get to that level where you can feel. We have plenty of people doing all sorts of things, but only few are there. So I would say we really need to separate ourselves, isolate, learn, open up, get yourselves a mentor, get this revelation about knowing more, because you cannot know enough. If you feel that you have arrived, you are dying. If you feel you have not arrived and you need to know more, you are living. I say something that then from the day we were born, we started to die. And the day we die, we begin again. What remains is that you need to know when to live, L-I-V-E, and know when to leave, L-E-A-V-E. What is the point? Life is a dichotomy. It's always like this. So if you know what you really want, I believe that you need to go for it and then work the discipline that is to it, and you will get it.
Wow. Any closing remarks?
For me, this is really beautiful, but ultimately, people need to eat. And so for me, like as he says, it's perfect, but it's such and it shouldn't be easy, obviously, but it's such an incredible reach for so many people. And so then this is the thing where you say, okay, then if that's the case, discipline yourself to spend maybe starting 1 hour a day on this thing. Because we know you have to go to school. We know you have to go to work to earn money to pay the bills. But when he says isolate, I think it's about disciplining yourself to dedicate a certain amount of time every day to your craft. You know, as they say, it takes 7 years of constantly working on something before you become like a master or whatever it is. Yeah. And so it's about discipline and consistency. For me would be the thing. Discipline and consistency. And know that the journey is going to be long, but you're going to get there, but you need to put in the time.
Okay. Ibo, closing remarks?
No
remarks.
remarks.
All right. So thank you for joining me for this episode. It's been a beautiful episode. I think I've learned a lot. I know that my audience are there to have learned, and we hope to have part 2 of this because I have so many follow-up questions. So I hope to reach out to you and you accept my invitation. Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for watching. So until next time, see you. My name is Fafali and I have been your host. Bye.